The impact of religion and Sufism on arts in Sudan. Rashid Diab, 1957. I'm delighted in this new episode of our documentary series to warmly welcome you and to introduce our distinguished guest, the creative artist and eminent cultural figure Rashid Diab, one of the most important pioneers of visual art in Sudan and the Arab world. We meet him today as part of this ongoing series through which we seek to document the trajectory of Sudanese visual art and its leading figures, while exploring the intellectual and aesthetic dimensions that have shaped their experiences, particularly the influence of Islam and Sufism informing their artistic visions and visual expressions. Through his rich artistic practice, Diab continues his aesthetic project, enriching it with his own distinctive vision that blends spiritual sensibility, humanistic depth, and experimental visual exploration. So dear audience, I'm so very happy to welcome you once again to continue our journey with the Sudanese visual artist. In our presence, as I told, Rashid Diab. So we hope this episode offers a new window for reflection and insight through which we journey into the worlds of art. Where spirit meets beauty and history converges with creativity. So once again, it is my pleasure to welcome you, and in fact this is the final figure out of the so many Sudanese prominent visual artists. We just selected and introduced the most prominent, the pioneers of the School of Visual Arts in Sudan. In fact, we have covered three major schools of arts, starting with the School of Khartoum, represented by Usman Allah, Rahim al-Salahi as an example, and then we covered the Crystalist movement headed by Kamala Ibrahim Ashag, and then we concluded with the School of the One, introduced by Ahmed Abdalal. So today we have here Rashid Diab. Will just go further to introduce his biography, his contribution to the visual arts in Sudan, in the Arab world, in Africa, and in the international scene, And then we come across his legacy. So you are very welcome, dear audience, once again. Birth and bringing up. The Sudanese modern painter, visual artist, and art historian Rashid Diab was born in 1957 in Wad Madani, a town on the bank of the Blue Nile River in Sudan. Diab grew up the son of a government employee in Wad Madani from a young age, concluding that what he wanted to do and could do best was to paint. To become an artist seemed like the only path in his destiny. About his education, Rashid Diab started his undergraduate studies in 1973 at the College of Fine and Applied Arts in Khartoum, graduating in 1975 and being awarded the scholarship to Spain to further his formation in fine art. He attended the Complutense University of Madrid and acquired licentiate in both painting and printmaking. Finally, in 1991, got his PhD on the traditional and contemporary of Sudanese art. Until today, the only one of its kind. This thesis contained the investigation of Sudanese artistic creation from the dawn of time until the present era. For the following 9 years, he would teach at that same university, the University of Madrid. The Arab League then had him continue and expand this historical investigation into a new volume that focused on visual arts. Precisely from those pioneers he encountered in Khartoum until the year 2004, officially cementing the existence of Sudanese visual arts via its history, impact, philosophical movements, and the different artists that it produced. Inspirations elements. In his artistic trajectory, Rashid Diab drew his inspiration from his hometown and travels along the majestic river and the colors that it brings with its migratory fauna and diverse flora. It is in this landscape where Diab first delved into the traditions and culture that composes the heartland of the Sudan. As a child, using rudimentary and impoverished materials, he knew he had to search further to develop his techniques. He was lucky enough to have some troubles as mentioned, but it wouldn't be until his own investigations in the 1980s and 1990s that he would travel the country more extensively. Further trips in the early 2000s would have him recount with the expansive scenery of Sudan and the different peoples that roamed the land. This inspired his latest style of work. For Rashid Diab, color of utmost importance. It can be seen as his unique defining quality within the spectrum of Sudanese painting styles. Interestingly, it becomes hard to pinpoint Diab's exact location within the history of the Sudanese art. He is not recognized as belonging to any school of art. His process and movement through the artistic landscape has always been that of an individual with set goals, never forming part of any groups or mandates. Unlike the pioneers, he didn't study in England, but Spain, and the only Sudanese artist at that. There was a higher focus on traditional techniques, part of the reason why he is unquestionably a master printmaker. The Encyclopedia of African History describes Diab's colorful style as an exemplification of the generation of artists that followed Sudanese pioneers like Ibrahim al-Salahi of the school of Khartoum and developed a more universal aesthetic that merges Western, African, and Islamic influences and expresses cultural identity in a global context. Achievements and accomplishment. In 1999, he moved back to Khartoum. By the way, he back from Spain for, as we have told, in his educational journey, he had he had obtained his PhD from the University of Madrid, and then he spent years teaching at that very same university. So after 20 years, he back to Sudan. And in this concern, I would like to inform, in 1999, he moved back to Khartoum with his family to further the art scene in Sudan. The same year, he opened Dara Art Gallery along with his wife at that time, Dr. Mercedes Carmona. This was the first professional art gallery of the country. Its aim was to create a space where artists could be exhibited in an orderly, curated, and intentional manner. In 2005, he inaugurated the Rashid Diab Art Center, a non-profit organization dedicated to the eradication cultural illiteracy in Sudan, as Diab would put it. Courses were held for children, young artists, regular international artists residencies, expositions of over 200 Sudanese artists, free entry weekly forums that range all types of subjects from history, poetry, and philosophy to local, social, and current global issues. He homaged practically all of Sudanese traditional music at the end of those weekly forums. As art historian, Diab has co-authored articles on modern art in Sudan in 2009 Handbook of Sudan and in the 1989 publication of Contemporary Art from the Islamic World. His daughter Darel Naim is a visual artist of Sudanese and Spanish. Audience, I would like to reminding you that I'm presenting Rashid Diab as part of our series of documentaries that have been dedicated to introduce Sudanese visual artists. So I would like to go further, and here we have Rashid Diab Arts Center. I would like to provide more information about this important and significant center. In 2005, Diab inaugurated Rashid Diab Arts Center in Khartoum, a non-profit organization dedicated to the eradication cultural illiteracy. As Diab would put it, courses were held there for children, international artist residencies, exposition of over 200 Sudanese artists, free entry weekly forums that range all types of subjects from history, poetry, and philosophy to current global and social local issues. And no doubt, this center has provided and granted a great window, a great opportunity, a great platform for Sudanese new generation of artists to have this experience, to practice their creative skills and talents. And no doubt, tens of Sudanese youth and young generation have benefited greatly from this center. In an interview with Arab newspaper, the Sudanese artist Rashid Diab is talking to Arab News about the inspiration behind his work. While initially he stated that, "I would love to be a poet. I pursue poetry through color." That inspiration is perhaps clearest in his three-part series, Homage to My Poet Friend, dedicated to the late poet and diplomat Salah Ahmed Ibrahim. To quote him, while he is talking to Arab newspaper, I found in his poems, referring here to Salah Ahmed Ibrahim, I found in his poems what I was looking to do in my paintings, specifically in a very long poem about the migration of the birds from the south to the north. Diab explains, in that poem, Ibrahim urged the birds to keep flying and let nothing stand in their way. If one of your wings happens to wane, just speed off to where? Until you see the Nile, studded with images of stars like a sword, embroidered with jewels scattered in disorder. Ibrahim wrote, the most important thing about him is that he was a very kind person. So Rashid Diab is speaking about Salah Ahmed Ibrahim. Diab says of his friend, he was very nationalistic and expressed his feelings about Sudan. He lived abroad for a long time because he was against the regime. After he was removed from his post as ambassador, he lived in a very bad situation in Paris. When I visited him, we talked and laughed together. We talk about Sudan. He was a very liberal, open-minded man. All his points are about liberty and freedom. He was very stubborn. Diab himself has traveled extensively throughout Sudan, where he returned in 1999 after 20 years living in Spain, and it is his love of his homeland, this landscape, and people, especially the women, which shines through his canvases. In many of his paintings, the figures seem to be moving at random through vast spaces. To quote him in this particular context, while he is speaking about his paintings, since I came back to Sudan, I have seen that many people do not know what to do, he says. It makes life surreal. I see the silence of the space in the desert with people fading or vanishing away. It is an uncertain life. Speaking about a beautiful abstract image of a group of women in traditional dress, he said, they create a moving painting. When they come together, you get very interesting combinations of color, a movement like an art installation. Diab wants to honor the women of his country, he explains. Many women in Sudan have lost their husbands or kids. They have suffered a lot, but they keep going. They are very strong women. I show them respect when I paint them. These women have to be recognized. Expositions. Rashid Diab's first exhibition was at the Africa Centre in London in 1976, whilst he was on a trip midway through his BA. Today he has exhibited in over 200 occasions, half of which solo shows, and reaching almost every corner of the world, exhibiting in several national museums and libraries, as well as art fairs biennials. Diab's work is collected by aforementioned institutions, private collectors, and more. Recently, by the Nairobi Contemporary Art Institute and the Ramsey and Tadia Dalot Art Foundation. His participation in major art exhibitions include the 1995 show 7 Stories About Modern Art in Africa, and his work has been presented in international expositions. Further, Diab is the author of art historical studies on the visual arts of Sudan. Diab's work has been exhibited internationally and included in private collections. In 1995, he was one of the participating artists of the exhibition 7 Stories About Modern Art in Africa, held at the Whitechapel Gallery in London as part of the Africa 95 festivals. In 2020, the Bahrain Museum in Manama held a retrospective exhibition of Diab's paintings, carvings, sculptures, and drawings. On this occasion, the Bahrain Authority for Culture and Antiquities Antiquities published the monographic work Beyond the Silence, focusing on Diab's life as an artist and his contribution to cultural and social development of Sudanese art and society. His talent has seen him exhibit all over the world, most recently at the Bahrain National Museum in 2019, and this year at the Cairo International Air Art Fair, Umoja Art Gallery, Kampala, and the one-off Contemporary Art Gallery, Nairobi. In November, he will have an exhibition entitled Monoprints at the French Institute in Khartoum, and 2022 will see him exhibit in Nairobi, Panama, and Saudi Arabia. After Diab was forced to abandon his art center and personal collection by the outbreak of the war in Sudan on 15th of April 2023, he managed to take refuge in the capital of Spain, Madrid. Despite this, he could present a new exposition titled Season of Beta Migration at Barak Namani Gallery in Beirut, Lebanon, in June 2023. In 2023 and the following year, art galleries in Lisbon, Portugal, and Madrid, Spain presented the group exposition of contemporary art from Sudan, Disturbance in the Nile, including works by Rashid Diab, Muhammad Otaibi, Rima Jaili, and other Sudanese visual artists. The artworks had been flown out of Khartoum on 14th of April 2023, just one day before the start of the war in Sudan. Almost all of the artists, including Diab, were driven into exile. And to quote him finally, "All of my life I have felt that I have to do something for my people," he says. "For me, happiness is to share what you have with others." Your audience, we travel together through a short journey, but informative one, with the Sudanese art maker, the prominent artist Rashid Diab, as part of our series of documentaries that have been dedicated to introduce Sudanese art visual production, with a special focus on the visual artists. So before to end the story, to end the episode, I would like to share part of the sources that I have consulted to present the episode. Lesco.org, publication about Sudan, Rashid Diab, and then RashidDiab.com. By the way, this is an official website for the artist himself. I have consulted this website and have taken so many good points and information that enable me at the end to present this humble presentation about Rashid Diab. Another source, article written by Dennis Mary, title Poetry on Canvas. Sudanese artist Rashid Diab discusses inspiration behind his work. Published in Arab News, September 9, 2021. Another source I have consulted, work by Rashid Diab, Sudan, published at almarkhiyagallery.com. Date to 28th of November 2018. And finally, Wikipedia, in which also I have consulted, in which biography, expositions, contributions of Rashid Diab is available there. By this, the audience, I come to the end of the episode. Till seeing you in another episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.